Java. Arrow demonstration. I want to walk you through a little program here on how we can set up some buttons to navigate an array list. So as we see here, I've got a program right here. And what our little program does here is it immediately opens up, and I've got it so it automatically loads 10 items into an array list. And we can navigate that array list by clicking on these buttons. So we can go forward, backwards, to the very first one, to the very last one. We can also add an item. So I can put in here Larry. Okay, can add on curly. Okay, if I want to delete, I can delete here. If I want to go back a few here, delete, I can do that. Okay, so I can navigate our array list using a set of buttons, and I can add and delete to that array list. So let me walk you through the code here. Let's break this into several parts. And this first part here is just how we're setting up our frame and our basic array list. So let's look at the code here. So on the first part here, first thing that we're going to do here, we'll look at some variables that are going on. So if we look at our global variables right here, I've got two. I've got our array list here, and it's called myAll, my array list. And then I've got another one here called alpause. Okay, so what alpause is going to relate to is this: is we create our array list. Okay, here's our positions, our array list positions. Okay, this variable right here is going to correlate to the position that we're looking at. So that's what alpause, array list position. All right, let's look at the next set here when we set up the frame. So I got a really neat little command here. This is something new here, and this is called this, and then set location relative to null. Okay, so this, we're self-referencing the frame here. Set location relative to, and we're using null. What this will do is this will center our form on the display. Okay, so this will put it dead center on our active display on that. So set location relative to null. It's a really neat command. And we're doing this here when the frame initiates. I also have two other things happening here. We're going to load the array. So I arbitrarily have the array list being loaded with 10 items. And I've got that doing that through a function call and a function called load array list. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So we look at our array list here, and basically all I've got going on here is just a simple for statement going on. Okay, 0 through 10, and basically I'm adding the word item and then concatenating on here the number. Now, as programmers here, we like to program things off with starting with 0. Okay, but normal users, they don't start counting at 0, they count at starting with 1. So this one here is what we're doing to do here. So it's going to say like item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, all the way up to item 10. Okay, let's go back and look at the very top part here again. Next thing I'm doing here, right here, is I'm setting the text field box 1, with the first item of the array list. Okay, now our text box takes strings. Okay, so we're going to pull our first item out of the array list. Okay, we're doing the dot get. Alpause here is at 0, so we're going to pull it out, and we're going to make sure that that's a string, so it's happy there for the text field. So basically what we're doing is loading that first item into our text field right here. Okay, and then the second thing we're going to do is actually put that counter here, so to speak. We're going to load this. Okay, so that's the next step we're going to do after that. And that is being done through a a function I wrote called load position. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So load position, here's our function. So I have a variable here called POS. That's going to represent the number in the box. Okay. Now since this represents the actual element in the array, okay, we need to add 1. Okay, so I'll pause, right, is relating to this, but our users relate to this, so that's why we're putting the 1 onto that. Okay, and then the next step that we're doing is we're setting up and putting that value in our text field 2, and we're putting that value in there. So we're pulling this variable right here and putting it right there. Okay, and just once again, the text field 2, text field 2, that's this text field right there. Okay, so this is the first setup here of our J-frame, and I'm going to end this section right here. And our next section, what we're going to talk about then is how we manipulate and set up the code behind these 4 buttons. So that'll be in part 2.